The pressure door had been welded shut from the inside. That was the first thing that told me someone had made a decision in those final minutes. A deliberate choice, before the *Vethek trench station went down. I'd been cutting through the forward compartments for 6 hours. Mine clearance work on a sunken alien warship is slow by design. You don't rush it. The Wrecking Combine had hired me to certify the wreck safe for salvage extraction, and I had a contract, a rebreather, and 40 years of hard experience that said you never cut a sealed compartment without checking the pressure differential first. So I checked. There was air on the other side. Not much, but air. I cut the door anyway. She was sitting in the far corner of a compartment barely 3 meters square, her knees drawn up, her gill slits flared wide in the thin atmosphere. Dreyani. I'd worked their frontier settlements for 11 years, and I knew their young on sight, the blue-silver sheen of the skin, the oversized pale eyes that caught even the faintest light and gave it back doubled. She was small. She was very still. She was watching me the way a creature watches something large that has not yet decided what it intends. I turned off my cutting torch. I set it down slowly. I sat on the deck plates across from her, and I did not move. She watched me for a long time. Then she held out her hand, palm up. It was empty. It was a gesture so clear, so careful, that it stopped something in my chest. I put my gloved hand in hers. She closed her fingers around 2 of mine and held on. I keyed my suit radio and called the surface tender. "I need a status hold on the extraction clock," I said. Foreman Breck came back immediately. "Negative, Vasher. Combine rep is already en route. You're 2 hours from their arrival window." "Then I need you to get me a line to the Castle IV Port Authority." Silence on the channel for a moment. "What for?" "Because I found something in this wreck that isn't on the manifest." I let him chew on that and turned back to the child. I dug through my equipment satchel one-handed, she hadn't let go, and found a foil-wrapped ration bar, the dense compressed kind, tasteless as chalk. I didn't know if Dreyani Young could eat human field rations. I set it on the deck plate between us and left the choice to her. She looked at it for a long moment, then looked back at me. Then she picked it up, turned it over in her small hands, and set it carefully in her lap as though it were a thing of value. That was enough. The Wrecking Combine salvage title under Castle IV Colonial Charter was airtight on materiel, hull sections, drive cores, weapon systems, personal effects of deceased crew. What it was not airtight on was living persons, and I had spent enough years working contested frontier salvage to know exactly where that line was drawn. I'd seen the Combine use deliberate ambiguity in their manifests before. Surviving biological cargo was a phrase that had appeared in one of their extraction reports 3 years ago, and the case had been quietly settled before any port authority could rule on it. I had read that settlement. I had read it carefully, the way you read a minefield before you walk it. I pulled up the contract on my suit display with my free hand, and I started writing a supplemental incident report. Not a complaint, not a protest, a correction. Clean, precise, in the specific technical language the Port Authority required for contested status filings. 1 living miner of confirmed Dreyani nationality, recovered from sealed survival compartment, legally constituting a shipwreck survivor under Colonial Rescue Ordinance 7.4, Section 2, which predated and superseded any salvage title claim under the Combine's extraction charter by 11 years. I filed it while she sat there holding my fingers, and I watched the timestamp confirm. Breck came back on the channel 8 minutes later, his voice carrying something new in it. "Vasher, the Combine rep just hit the tender. He's asking what the hold is. Tell him I've filed a status correction with Port Authority, and extraction is suspended pending review." "He's not going to like that." "He doesn't have to like it, he has to comply with it. CRO 7.4 is mandatory stay, check the charter." Another silence, longer this time. Then he's reading it. I looked at the child. She had unwrapped the ration bar and was examining the foil, turning it so it caught the light from my helmet lamp. She said something in a low, breathy register I couldn't parse, dreyani dialect I hadn't heard before, maybe a coastal variant. I didn't need to understand the words. The tone was something I recognized. She was talking to herself, quietly, the way a person does when they've been alone for a very long time and have started keeping their own company. My chest did the thing again. Vasher. It was the Combine rep now, not Breck. His name was Solon, and I'd dealt with him twice before on other contracts. You understand this correction delays extraction by a minimum of 4 days pending Port Authority review. I do. And you understand the daily hold fee is charged against your completion bonus. I read the contract, Solon. Then what exactly are you doing down there? I looked at the small dreyani child sitting on the deck plates of a sunken warship, her people gone, holding a piece of foil up to the light and watching it shine. My job, I said. He pulled my completion bonus, all of it. I had expected that. What I had not expected was the Port Authority to rule in 5 hours rather than 4 days. A duty officer named Hassel who apparently had a working knowledge of CRO 7.4 and no patience for deliberate charter ambiguity. The stay became a formal exclusion order. The Combine's extraction title was flagged for review. I heard later that Solon filed a counter-complaint, and I heard after that it was dismissed. I wasn't there for any of it. By then I was topside, on the tender's deck, with the child wrapped in a thermal blanket because the surface air on Castle IV runs cold, and she had no protective gear, and it was the only one I had. She sat against my side because that was where she'd placed herself, and she still had the foil from the ration bar folded small in her hand. A Port Authority shuttle arrived inside 3 hours. There were people on it who knew dreyani dialect and knew what to do next, and I watched them crouch down to her level and speak to her softly, and I watched her look back at me once before she went with them. I didn't see her again for 2 years. Then one morning, a data packet arrived at my work terminal on Heron Station. No cover note, just an attachment. It was a port registry document, properly filed in the dreyani administrative style. At the top was a name I didn't recognize, rendered in their script. Below it, in plain trade standard text, someone had written, "He did not log me as cargo." I read it once, I set it down, I went back to work. That was enough.